Hello, and welcome to another listening practice where we take a ride on the Hovercraft across to the Isle of Wight and explore Quarr Abbey. This is the Hovercraft terminal, and it's run by a company called Hovertravel, which is the world's longest running commercial hovercraft service. It was established in 1965 and has had more than 29 million passengers since then. This terminal is located in Southsea near Portsmouth, and the Hovercraft offers the fastest route across the Solent to Ryde on the Isle of Wight. It takes 10 minutes with crossings every 15 minutes. The Hovercraft is used by commuters, so people can live on the Isle of Wight and work on the mainland and just use the Hovercraft to travel across and back every day. You can take dogs and bikes on the Hovercraft, and it is also used by school children. So some school children live on the Isle of Wight, and every day they will travel across to school on the mainland. You can see as we enter the Hovercraft that people were there with their dogs, and on the back of every seat there is a safety notice telling you what to do in the unlikely event that the Hovercraft runs into trouble or starts to sink, which would be very unfortunate. You can book online to buy a ticket, in which case you will receive an e-ticket, so the people will just scan your phone as you enter the terminal, and it also allows you to skip the queues at the terminal. In summer it can get very busy. The Hovercraft can also be hired privately and also for weddings. The Hovercraft is a great way to get across the Solent because it's not affected by tides, as the Hovercraft can travel on both sand and water, as it travels on a cushion of air, and it can travel up to 50 miles an hour. I didn't record much of the journey across the Solent because visibility wasn't very good at the window. The window was rather dirty and my camera kept focusing on the dirt rather than the view. But when you arrive in Ryde, there is a bridge over the railway directly outside the terminal, which gives a great view of the Hovercraft leaving and entering the port. So I stayed there on the bridge and filmed the process for you. It's quite a long process. This part of the video is sped up by 3 times. Otherwise we'd be sitting here for about 2 minutes watching it. So once all the passengers are loaded up, off it goes. And you can see it heading across the Solent and the skyline of Portsmouth in the distance. Whee! And here is a view of the seafront buildings of Ryde. And one of Ryde's claims to fame is that the Beatles' hit, A Ticket to Ryde, was inspired by a trip to this town by Paul McCartney and John Lennon in the early 1960s. It is the Isle of Wight's largest town, and it has shopping centres, places for nights out, and it has a good creative art scene. It also has miles of sandy beaches, which apparently in summer look golden, but on a cold winter day when I was there, everything looked rather grey. It also has a seawall footpath, lots of cafes and restaurants. I took a walk down Ryde Pier, which was originally built in the 19th century. So the original pier was built in 1814 and measured 1,740 feet long. In 1824 it was extended, and in 1842 it got to its current length of half a mile. It's currently one of the longest piers in the UK. It has to be this long so that ferries from the mainland can reach the ferry port at the end of the pier, whether it's high tide or low tide. There is also a train station at the end of the pier, which is serviced by ex-London Underground trains and provides train links to the rest of the Isle of Wight. Walking back along the pier, you also get a great view of Ryde. I tried not to judge Ryde too harshly because I imagine in summer it looks quite different, with golden beaches and blue skies. But when I was there, it looked rather grey and dingy. But as I say, I'm sure if you come in summer, it will look absolutely delightful. There is a live music venue in Ryde called the Ryde Pavilion, where the Rolling Stones once played. Aside from being a tourist attraction in its own right, Ryde, as I said before, provides transport links to the rest of the Isle of Wight. And the Isle of Wight really is worth visiting. It has breathtaking coastline, beautiful beaches, and there's also other tourist attractions such as zoos, a farm park, a monkey haven. You can also visit Osborne House, which was Queen Victoria's seaside retreat. There's a steam train, and you can do various outdoor activities like paragliding, sailing, kayaking. It is also one of the best places in the UK to see dark skies. There is less light pollution here, so if you want to look at the stars, the Isle of Wight is a great place to go. It's also one of the few places in the UK where you can still see red squirrels, which is very exciting. And a bit later, we will see some footage of when I caught a glimpse of these lovely creatures. If you look back across the Solent on a clear day, you can see the skyline of Portsmouth, including the Spinnaker Tower, which is where we were in one of my previous videos. So, as I said before, Ryde is the largest town on the Isle of Wight, and it has a long and interesting history. As we wander down the high street, you can see it has lots of independent shops and old-looking buildings. It started as a small fishing and farming village, but it became an important seaside resort in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, partly due to the construction of Ryde Pier, which is now the oldest surviving pier in Britain. The pier made it much easier for visitors from the mainland to visit, and it became a popular holiday destination. It became famous for its stylish atmosphere and beautiful sea views. Many elegant buildings, large hotels, and a busy promenade were built, which attracted wealthy visitors from the mainland. In the 20th century, the town remained an important transport hub, with ferries and hovercrafts connecting it to the mainland, and during both World Wars, its location and pier made it strategically important. As I explored Ryde and headed vaguely in the direction of Quarr Abbey, I came across this church, which is called All Saints' Church, and it was very large and really quite magnificent. It was completed in 1882 and can seat up to 600 people. The steeple, or the tower, is 186 feet tall. I tried to go inside, but unfortunately it was locked, so I couldn't show you the stained glass windows. I continued walking out of the town, heading west, and walked down a lane called Ladies' Walk, which would take me almost all the way to Quarr Abbey. This was walking through the countryside, which was very pleasant. And this is where I caught my first glimpse of a red squirrel. Not my first ever, but my first of the day. Red squirrels have been outcompeted by grey squirrels on most of mainland Britain, so there aren't that many places where you can still see them. So it's quite special, and they're very cute. I walked leisurely through the countryside and came across some pretty thatched cottages. As I approached Quarr Abbey, I came across the old Abbey farmhouse, which has now been converted into holiday accommodation, and I will link the website below if you're interested in staying there. Soon afterwards, I got my first sight of Quarr Abbey across the fields. Even from a distance, it looked very spectacular. Quarr Abbey is still home to a small group of Benedictine monks today. The original abbey was founded in 1132, and the name comes from a nearby quarry. Quarr is an old abbreviation of the word quarry in English. It was closed by Henry VIII in 1536 in his crackdown on the Catholic Church. The medieval abbey still exists in ruins. It was an interesting abbey because it was fortified and had a role in maritime trade, so it was quite unusual in that respect. The modern buildings were completed in 1912. It still has 7 public services a day, and it also now has gardens, a tea shop, a visitor centre, a shop where the monks sell their garden produce, a bookshop, and a gallery of local artists, so it's become quite a tourist attraction as well. You can see some of the things they have for sale in the shop here, but we'll take a better look inside the shop a bit later on. From the entrance to the shop, you can head across a small courtyard, which leads you to the visitor centre and the bookshop. The visitor centre contains information about the abbey's history and also about the lives of the monks that still live there. It includes a timetable of their day and of the services that are held in the abbey. There is also a small room to the side where you can go to watch a video which shows you more about their life and how they live together. After reading the information in the visitor centre, I wanted to visit the church itself. I walked back across the courtyard and past the shop, and then you turn left and you go past the abbey, and in front of you is the church. Maybe in summer it feels different, but because I was there when it wasn't tourist season, there weren't many people around, and the whole surroundings had a very serene and peaceful feel. The abbey is free to visit, but they do ask that you make a donation just to help with the upkeep of this magnificent building. Having spent some time enjoying the peace and serenity inside the church, I decided to head to the cafe to grab some lunch. It's just a short walk through the gardens to the cafe, and also right next to the cafe are the public toilets, which is always useful to know. The cafe serves a nice variety of hot and cold food, including soup, jacket potatoes with fillings, different sandwiches or toasted sandwiches, crisps, and some lovely looking cakes, which unfortunately I didn't try. After warming up over lunch, I headed into the woodland walk, which is where you can get to a Hyde, which is somewhere you can sit to watch birds and other animals. And this is where I saw the red squirrels at really close quarters. I sat there quietly, and they were so curious and probably hungry. They were looking for food, and they were climbing on my rucksack, which was just next to me on the bench, and running up and down the barrier in front of me. It was really lovely and really exciting. I'd never seen red squirrels so close before. I sat there watching the squirrels until I was so cold I needed to move, and then I walked back through the woodlands to the shop. And in the shop there was a lovely variety of goods. There was foodstuffs like jams and chutneys and cakes, and there was also candles and reed diffusers, which made the shop smell lovely. After buying 2 different types of marmalade in the shop, I walked back through the woods to try and find the pigs, which I knew that they kept here. and you can buy food in the shop to feed to the pigs. And this was the finale of my visit to Quarr Abbey, because who doesn't like watching pigs? It was now time to head back towards Ryde to catch the hovercraft back over to Southsea. I was also ridiculously cold by this point, to the point that I was shaking with cold. As I was walking back in the same direction from which I had come, I discovered a footpath which I hadn't been down before, so I followed it and found a tiny little beach, which was very cute, but also, again, very cold, so I didn't stay there very long. When I got back to Ryde, I had about half an hour to wait before my hovercraft left, so I found a lovely warm cafe and had a very luxurious hot chocolate. And I don't think there is much more to add at this point. I boarded the hovercraft and we set sail back across the Solent towards Southsea. And as we crossed, you could see the landmarks of Southsea gradually come into view, like the Spinnaker Tower and the Lipstick Tower, which we talked about in one of my previous videos. The journey back was slightly more choppy than the journey there, which made it more fun, although if you get motion sickness, it might not have helped you very much, because with the larger waves, the hovercraft moved up and down more, and sometimes it felt like you were falling and flying. I thought it was more exciting, but not everybody might like it. So I will leave you to enjoy the journey back across the Solent. I really hope you enjoyed this video and exploring a little bit of the Isle of Wight with me. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments or questions, please write them below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching again, and I will see you next time. Bye!